Y'all, have you ever had German Stollen or Stollen? Not sure how to say it, but this stuff is incredible. It's like German's answer to the Italian panettone, but this has a layer or a tunnel of marzipan in it. It is absolutely delicious. And this one is gluten free. You won't find gluten free Stollen anywhere that I know of. So I'll show you how to make it. Let's get into it. So first off, we're going to make our own marzipan from scratch. Had I known you could do this, I would have done it a long time ago because I love anything like almond flavored, whatever. And we're going to start with 1 egg, and we're going to add to that both granulated sugars and powdered sugar. And of course, as in all of my videos, you will find the link to the recipe in the description box below the video. So now we're going to whisk this together to combine, and make sure it's in a heat safe bowl because we are going to put this over a simmering pot of water with about 1 inch of water in the bottom. And we're going to whisk this just until the sugars are melted. And if you set a timer for 5 minutes, it will be done in 5 minutes. It's not going to look much different other than you may not see any more sugar crystals present. And if you were to dip your fingers in it and rub it between your fingers, you would not feel any sugar crystals present. So it's a little bit lighter in color. This is done now. So now we're going to pour that into another bowl with our almond flour. And the reason I'm pouring it into another bowl versus using the same bowl, because you know how I hate doing dishes, is because this bowl is really hot right now. And I'd rather not burn myself and just go ahead and suffer the consequences of me using 2 bowls instead of 1. And then once you have that all in there, switch to a spatula or spoon or something, because it is going to get really firm, and it's almost going to look like it's too dry. And you know you've done it right when it looks like this, where it's almost too dry, because now we're going to dump it out on the counter and we're going to knead it. And that will release a lot of the oils in the almond flour and make it more supple. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but I'm telling you, this stuff is really, really tasty. Now, you can add almond extract to this. I didn't feel a need to, because in the Stollen, I'm also adding amaretto, which, as you know, is almond liqueur. And I thought that was plenty of almond flavoring in there. And I wanted it to be a little more natural. But if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of almond extract into your marzipan. But see how this gets almost like a dough consistency? That's what you're going for. So wrap this up and we'll set it aside until we need it. So now here is a half a recipe of my gluten-free sweet dough, which I will leave a link for in the description box as well. And there are also plenty of videos that use this. This is the same dough as my cinnamon roll dough. It's like the master sweet dough for all gluten-free sweet dough baking, sweet bread baking. So I'm taking this out of the fridge. This is after step 2 of making that dough, and it's been in the fridge overnight. And as you can see, it's a pretty firm dough. This is nice and cold. If your dough does not look like this, you did something wrong. So go back either through the recipe, or my guess is it's within the actual gluten-free bread flour blend, my blend. You either substituted something, you measured something incorrectly, something went wrong, because your dough should be this like thick and sturdy and not really, really super sticky. So I'm putting this out onto a floured surface, and right now I'm just patting it down. I'm not bothering to knead it right now because I want to add the additions. And the additions that I'm using for this are golden raisins and regular dark raisins. And I actually have some chopped apricots. Oh, before that, I'm adding my spices, which is cardamom, cinnamon, and nutmeg. And the original recipe also calls for mace. That's a hard one to find. So if you can't find mace, you can substitute with more nutmeg, which is what I did. And this fruit was soaked overnight in a little one of those little like airline bottles of Amaretto di Serrano. And I'm also adding slivered almonds to this. So now I'm just folding it over. Now you could also do this to where you add the inclusions in when you are making the dough. This dough, I just so happen to have it in the fridge from another application because you know how this dough is used in so many of my recipes. I mean, it's probably in 15 or more recipes by now. So if you're like me and you seem to have a constant supply of the sweet dough going in your fridge, then you want something else to use it for, like a half a recipe or whatever, this is the way to do it. You'll have to add the inclusions later. And you just add more flour as necessary to get them all incorporated without sticking, but it can be done. It might get a little bit messy at first. Just keep going with it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to actually take my rolling pin and roll it out because I do want it a little more uniform at this point. You don't have to do that either. You can pat it out. I'm going for like a nice oval shape, almost like a large egg shape. And off camera, I took half the marzipan and rolled it into like a sausage shape. In retrospect, I would use the whole thing because honestly, for this amount of bread, it really doesn't seem like it's enough. That marzipan is so yummy and it really flavors the dough and makes it wonderful. So I'm taking the marzipan, putting it in the middle, folding the one side over, and now I'm folding the other side back over that to the top of it, and I'm kind of tucking everything in, and it's supposed to look like a swaddled baby Jesus. Take the side of your hand and kind of press it down on the one side. And that's all there is to shaping the Stollen. And you've made this entire Stollen in, I don't know, less than like 15 to 20 minutes of hands-on time. It's so easy, you guys. If you didn't make your own marzipan, it would be even less. So we just put this on a baking sheet covered in parchment and then cover it loosely with plastic wrap. And we're going to let this rise until it's nearly doubled in size. Now remember, this dough is cold, so it needs longer than a normal, gluten-filled dough would need to rise. But here it is risen, and you can see it's definitely puffed. And what I'm doing is I'm taking off some of these raisins that are at the top poking through so they don't burn in the oven, because then they will kind of get that burnt flavor. So I'm getting this in the oven at 350 for about 20 to maybe 25 minutes. It doesn't take long at all to bake. And look at this Stollen. It is very, very impressive, at least to me. So now what we're going to do to gild the lily even more, we're going to poke holes all over the Stollen. And I'm just using a wooden skewer. You can use a metal skewer, whatever you have. A toothpick, even a fork. And you want to make sure you get lots of holes all the way through there. And now comes the best part. We liberally brush it with butter. And what the butter does is it seeps into those holes and it allows the bread to stay softer longer, because if you've done any research or ever had any German relatives or anything, a lot of these people say that they can keep their Stollen for up to like a month and it will still be just as good or even better. And I thought that this was insane, that there's no way bread is going to last a month just sitting on the counter or whatever. And I'm here to tell you they are right. Mine actually went for 3 weeks, and I'll give you a few tips for that on how to let it go for so long. But first, we're going to load it up with melted butter. Drizzle it, just load it up. And then we're taking powdered sugar, because this is the traditional Stollen, and it's supposed to replicate like the snowy mountains of Germany. And we are going to blanket, and I mean blanket, this thing with powdered sugar to where you can hardly see any of the bread poking through. In fact, I've seen some people actually put the powdered sugar on the bottom, like flip it over, do the butter and then the powdered sugar on top. I didn't go into those lengths, but what I did do to keep it longer is after each week, I would break it out, I would drizzle some more butter on it, and I would sprinkle more powdered sugar. And that kept it really moist for literally 3 weeks. So now I've wrapped it in plastic wrap first, nice and tight, and then into foil is what I'm going to do next, because I did a lot of research on this, and a lot of German women said that this is the way that they did it. They wanted to wrap it real tight twice, and they would break it out after 1 week and like kind of feed it again. Kind of like if you've ever had a Christmas cake, which is like a UK's version of a fruit cake. It's the same kind of concept. You're feeding it. And this is it now after just 1 day. So there was no need to feed it again or anything. But I wanted to show you, because I wanted to show you how still nice and soft it is after 1 day of sitting in there. Because you know how some gluten-free breads can get really dried out really quickly. But this one, the texture changes, and that marzipan becomes like, instead of being real stiff like marzipan can be, it gets almost like supple and I don't know, fluid like a little bit. But look at the inside of this. How wonderful is this? It's still extremely soft. The raisins in it, the fruit in it, the almonds all play a part to make it just so flavorful, and you can really taste the amaretto and the marzipan. After several days, it kind of permeates into the rest of the dough, makes it stay moist for days as well. It is absolutely delicious, you guys. I would give it a try if you've never had Stollen, or even if you have. And if you have, let me know how this compares to the gluten-filled one, because I'm blown away by it myself. It's delicious. I hope you enjoy.